2 weeks ago, I uploaded a video in which I asked the question, is it over for Metallica? I compared the incredible rise of Sleep Token to the massive success of Metallica, but I also pointed out the underwhelming impact of the new Metallica album, 72 Seasons, both on the Billboard and on social media platforms like YouTube. I was concerned by that, and it made me contemplate what made Metallica's music so impactful back in the 80s and 90s. What made Metallica special? Moreover, are the reasons behind Metallica's success the same as the ones behind Sleep Token's success? Those are my two questions for today. Let's find out. So it's the year 1981. Metallica is formed with drummer Lars Ulrich, rhythm guitarist and vocalist James Hetfield, bassist Ron McGovney, and lead guitarist Dave Mustaine. Each member brought in a number of different influences. They were mostly inspired by British bands that defined metal like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and Judas Priest. Bands from the new wave like Iron Maiden, Diamond Head, and Motorhead. Punk rock bands like the Ramones and Killing Joke, and early black metal bands like Venom. Those influences helped the band combine elements of speed, rawness, and technicality. The band also displayed an element both on record and on stage that separated them from bands from the glam metal scene and caused them to move from Los Angeles to San Francisco, which would become the home of Metallica. That element is attitude. Tough, masculine, macho, big balls, intimidating attitude. Yep, Metallica were the Chads of the 80s. Ron McGovney leaves Metallica after continuous clashing and tension with fellow band members, and not being a very effective member. Enter Cliff Burton, who had been already mesmerizing audiences of the band Trauma with his innovative bass wizardry. Shortly after, Dave Mustaine is fired, though his fingerprints remained all over a number of Metallica songs that would be released later on. Mustaine would be replaced by Kirk Hammett, ex-guitarist of Exodus, who brought in influences of many great guitar players, including the greatest of them all, Jimi Hendrix. Metallica releases Kill 'Em All, combining pretty much all aforementioned elements and giving people something they had never heard before. Kill 'Em All was merely the beginning of Metallica exploring and reaching their full musical potential. We got to hear Cliff Burton take the idea of the bass solo to a whole new level on the track Anesthesia, but that would only be the beginning of Cliff Burton displaying his broad musical vocabulary and simultaneously elevating the quality of Metallica's music. Ride the Lightning was the album on which the band added an element of heaviness. Another thing they achieved is becoming one of the few bands of their generation to have a distinct sound that would later on be very recognizable and become one of Metallica's signature sounds. Meanwhile, Cliff Burton was cooking. One of the main influences that Cliff brought in was Western classical music. Cliff was a very technical player who knew a lot of music theory. He was very good at harmony and even taught it to James and Kirk. He was experimental with sounds and effects. He would do things that no bass player before him had done, and he would add a quality of delicacy to Metallica's music that would separate it from the music of nearly every other metal band at the time. All of that resulted in Metallica possessing great versatility for a thrash metal band from the 80s. That versatility would be fully displayed on Master of Puppets. The track Orion is considered by many the pinnacle of Cliff Burton's genius. Who knows where it would have gotten if Cliff had just survived that horrific bus crash in 1986. In 1988, Metallica added yet another very important term to its musical glossary: prog. The album Injustice for All features what are probably Metallica's most difficult songs to play. But there was something about those songs, something that made them really special. Metallica went very technical on the record, playing the most challenging riffs they could come up with in changing time signatures. But in the meantime, they retained their melodicity and catchiness instead of just going full-on tech death. It's important to note that the late 80s were the early years of death metal. It is possible that a band like Possessed might have influenced Metallica during that period. Also, I need to add that bassist Jason Newsted brought in an element of funk, a genre that he was influenced by. He constantly displayed that influence throughout his tenure with Metallica. Another thing that made the Justice album so good was the band's outstanding ability to communicate emotions through the music. The band's new, dry guitar tone, which went on to become another one of Metallica's signature sounds, in addition to James's ear-piercing vocals, magnified the intensity of songs like One and Dyer's Eve. On the Black Album, Metallica took the opposite direction. They adopted a simple, mainstream hard rock formula, while retaining their heaviness and the intensity of their music and lyrics. Although James's choice of words was altered thanks to producer Bob Rock in order to be more radio-friendly, James actually displayed more emotion on this record than on any of their previous ones. Songs like The Unforgiven and My Friend of Misery showed a very vulnerable side of him. And then there's Nothing Else Matters, Metallica's most popular song. That song was probably the biggest challenge of the band's whole career. They proved that they could be very versatile, emotional, and passionate, while writing a song that would become one of the most learned by guitar players. They also proved that they didn't need to go to 100 BPM with the driest guitar tone and the harshest vocals just to make a point or communicate a feeling.